Good morning. It is about 2 a.m. here in Tokyo, and I'm moving out of this place in a day now. I haven't packed anything up, but I did want to do something in this little room of mine that I've lived in uh, on and off for the last 5-ish months to, I guess, have something to show for being in this space for a minute now. Basically, I sell Pokemon cards as my full time job, and I split my time between America and here in order to essentially source cards for my business and run the business overseas and be at home, card shows, eBay, all of that. But yeah, I guess that's just part of documenting. A lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about in this video is essentially, it was originally going to be written content for my Substack, but I haven't posted in maybe a couple of months now, going on 2 months now. And it's because I have a lot of different things written up at about like 40 to 60% completion. But quite frankly, I'm not happy with most of it. Kind of stuck between like a rock and a hard place where it's like it's semi cohesive. There are ideas there, but it doesn't flow well yet. So a lot of those ideas will be explored in this video, a lot of reflection. And I think that's just the purpose of this type of content too, is to just stop, chill, and reflect on kind of like time selling as my full-time job. I used to work in tech. So having been like full-time in selling as my own business, in case I have to go back to a full-time office job in the coming years, I just want to have something documented to show for things I've learned along the way, things that might help other people. And yeah, so we're quickly approaching February, and usually like around like the end of Q4 into January is when you like, take everything you've learned from the previous year and just try to like have like a game plan for the following like 12 months. So I'll be exploring that, and I think the basis of that is to go do a readout of my December sales, because the holiday season is so critical when running a kind of like retail like business, and that's essentially what Pokemon card selling is. It's retail. Just a lot of it takes place, most of it, if not all, takes place on the secondhand market if you're not like doing sealed. So I do single cards, I do graded cards, yada yada yada. Nothing crazy. Everybody does it now. It's an emerging kind of like side hustle slash kind of like full time thing that a lot of people move into. So just gonna shut up, start reading, and along the way, I'll be exploring like why an item sold. What else? My thought process when approaching certain sales. Some of them speak for itself, and then I'll be talking about the item, the quantity, like how much the total sale was. So I just pulled all of my eBay sales for December, and it would be an item quantity and the total sale. So off the top of my head, I could probably do the quick math of like how much it sold at the individual unit, but yeah, we'll get into it. I'm probably only gonna stop at like the top. I don't know. I'm not gonna do every single row because then it gets into like $5 cards, $2 cards, $3 cards, $10 cards, etc. But yeah, this is also only eBay too, so it's not gonna include sales from a show. And I only did one show in December anyway. All the shows kind of like they slow down and just stop, like maybe one or two. But I think there are three in the Bay Area. No, there are two. I did one show. Well, not going to cover that here, but this is all eBay, and it is all gross. It does not take away from, it does not take fees out of it yet. So start from the top. The kind of headliner, premium courtside seat, Masaki Gengar in a PSA 10 sold for $14,000. And this was one of my personal grail cards that I decided to sell. I had it listed insanely high along with the others, 25K, and a buyer reached out making an offer that was very, very strong. I had to consider it. For me personally, Masaki Gengar is a 10 out of 10 card. It has everything going for it: history, popular character, condition rarity, just the entire story of how to get the card, all the cards being damaged, essentially being pinched into the paper, the infamous Masaki mark. And at the time when I bought it, already graded as a PSA 10, the biggest thing for me was that it didn't have Masaki marks. So it was a little difficult for me to let go of, but just the net sale, the kind of like burn the hand type margin from off of what I had paid originally for it. And going into 2025, I knew that the proceeds from it would go a really long way. Like I could do a lot with 14,000 minus fees. So, and at the end of the day, the Masaki cards aren't necessarily rare. They have condition rarity. And that's where the premium is from. Even like nines are expensive now. 9 to 10, that huge jump is all like condition rarity. And for me personally, I've owned numerous copies of these before. 9 to 10, 9, 8, all the grades, raw copies, bought and sold, raw copies, and just the collectability aspect of it at all the different conditions, to me, speaks more to me personally than a PSA 10. So I know I probably won't own a 10 in the future just because I have to run this as a business. But down the line, like just the other day in Akiba, there's been a probably medium play copy for Jumanen, which is like 600 USD, 625, 650. That I've had my own on. It doesn't have Masaki marks. It's just like the surface is kind of fucked up. So might pick that one up just for like my binder. But I'd be perfectly happy with damaged copies. And for those who know me, like I love damaged cards. Damaged goods are the best. So that sale happened. Also, another reason why I made the sale was like looking at other comps. Other copies had gone in the past, like on record at like 8, 9, and 10. So for the buyer to like come to an agreement for 14 was like a no brainer. So that's like another tip for people who are selling in person. Like if it's something that you know that is extremely hard to reacquire and like you personally know what it is worth as opposed to like what the comps are saying, try as best as you can to hold on to it, especially if like the comps are, if you paid more than comps, because like somebody's gonna come to your table like with a vendor badge and offer you like, oh, I'll give you like 80% of comps for this, and then like if I'd done that with this card, like I'd gone like 7 grand. So like to be able to like have that record like 14 like on paper too, I think other people with copies are happy with it. I'm personally happy with it too because I know I can do so much with that. So moving on. One card in, 10 minutes in. This is already bad. So you click out, it's fine. But next, 11 sets of the V-Star Universe, Arceus, Giratina, Dialga, Palkia, sequential cert sets. So the V-Star Universe set, where they make that 4 thing, the gold cards. I sold 11 sets of those. Total sale was, what is that? Total sales was 3,300. So around 310 for each set. After that, 8 sets of the non-sequential versions. So just the PSA 10, all PSA 10, just non-sequential cert. Sold 8 sets of those for $2,245. That comes out to like 280, 290 per set, maybe 275 on some offers. After that, 21 copies of Nagaba Umbreon just by itself, not the set. 37 copies of the Gengar CHR, the one from the video game, the Legends Arceus with the Misfortune Sisters, I think, the Dark Phantasma one. Sold 37 copies of that for $1,621. And these are all different sales. It's just an aggregate number of quantity sold and item sales, to be clear. Maybe one buyer bought like 5 copies, but these are not like individual transactions of somebody buying 37 copies of it. Each copy went for like $40, 40, 45. That's a card I can't keep in stock. So kind of bookmark it there. Just a theme of like selling the same item over and over again. Just like having like really popular items in your store. It not only drives traffic to your store, but it also gives you like that sales history of items. Like will push you like further up the buy box. So for a lot of these, like I was like in the top row for sure on eBay search. And I also use sponsored listings too. So that also does give a boost. So selling all this stuff, but also like paying the 2-3% per item to push it. That's another thing that I forgot. For the Masaki Gengar, obviously is a great sale. I wouldn't necessarily call it a home run. It's like, to me personally, in terms of margin, it feels like a solid double. But one mistake that I will own, and I've like kind of vented to friends about this too, was when I made the listing for it, I accidentally had my sponsored listing turned on for it, which is like malpractice because like why would you need a sponsored listing for like a grail card that like people are looking for that card? Like, and when you look for the card, when you search it, there's like 5 listings. So basically it's the equivalent to like taking $500 and lighting it on fire. That's basically what I did. But it's okay. I'll live. So kind of back to this theme of just like having popular items in your store and reaching the top of the buy box and just having cards that like won't, in terms of like rarity, they're not rare. They're from main sets, but they're really well executed in PSA 10. Either popular characters, part of like some sort of like mini set within the set. So like the gold cards go together. You can make sequential PSA 10s out of those, and they sell. For buyers, they're buying all the cards at once. They get a full set. They're happy. PSA 10 looks really nice. And then for the Gengar, it's Gengar. That's it. It's like the cheapest, one of the cheapest like full art Gengars too, as well. So you can't go wrong with it. Another, what was I gonna say? There's like another thing that I'll mention when I kind of go through a few more of these. After that, PSA 10 EV Scream sold for $1,200. That was a buy it now. Overseas buyer. There were other listings that were a little bit lower than that one. So these are all prices kind of like before things have been skyrocketing too. So I don't know where it is now, but at the time, I think there are a couple other listings still at 1,000 in like the early to mid December. So maybe that buyer found the specific copy they wanted. Maybe they want to black label it. I don't know. After that, 15 copies of Nagaba Pikachu in PSA 10 for $1,200. So that comes out to around $70 to $80. I had done a restock when I had a PSA sub come back, and back then Now they're like 120 per card. But yeah, for the longest time, I'd been just like restocking this card in PSA 10, selling it at like, even at shows for like 60, like through 2024. But slowly creeping up, especially like the holiday season, kind of like another theme here, holidays. Saw it just kind of like start to like slowly climb up to like 70. There's also no more of it out there. Like they're not printing more of it. So whatever's out there is out there. So 70 to 75 to 80. So long history of sales even before December, plus sponsored, top of the buy box. Can't emphasize that enough. It's a good card. Like the people hate on it. People hate on the Nagwa promos just because they believe they can draw it. They probably can, but it's not their illustration. That's why it's jealousy. So yeah, that card's been climbing up 75. I'd say like 75, we'll call it, during December. On my eBay right now, out of stock for now. More coming soon. After that, Detective Pikachu, 15 copies at 1,000. Another one, same as the Nagaba, the longest time floating between 60 to 70. I would call those at like 65 a piece I sold going into the holidays. After that, 5 sets of the Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charmander ARs sequentially, the 050 to 052 cards from the Japanese kind of like starter deck box, the EX box. These cards, in my opinion, are better than the English ones because they are released in the same set. They have sequential set numbers. They all share the same theme, same release, just executed better, as opposed to English where they just kind of throw them out there. So sold 5 sets. I don't know if I said already. 5 sets for $1,000. These are sequential. Throughout 2024, I was also selling these just consistently between like 150 to 175 on eBay, and then kind of wholesaling out to other vendors at shows for like 130 average. So I only sold 5 sets during December due to just low stock. So sold out of whatever I had in December. Next, PSA 10, Pikachu, Card S. Favorite set of all time for me. Those who know, can't talk about it enough. I always have it at shows, and none of it sells. So just a wasted display space for cards that people don't know what they're missing out on. Friends point at it and say, "Hey, that's a great card. It's illiquid, whatever." But it'll have its moment, especially when I complete my PSA 10 set of it. So yeah, sold that for $855. International buyer. PSA next. I sold 2 sets of PSA 9 full sets of Nagaba, Pikachu plus the evolutions. So sold 2 sets of those for, let's see, $700. So that's like $350 each. Another one that is just like, now those cards are kind of taking like in like another insane place, and maybe I'll cover that if there's a January type recap where like the price difference is stark. After that, I've sold 8 copies of the PSA 10 Magikarp AR, the Japanese version of the Mr. P Magikarp AR, the one that's $1,000 now, $1,500. Sold 8 copies for $675. So another card that has since I'd since sold 2 copies for $140 each on eBay, but these were sold at like 80, 70 to 80. After that, sold 9 copies of the Nagaba Leafeon in PSA 10 for $531. So that comes out to like 60 each, a little bit less. And these are just loose PSA 10s that weren't put into full sets. So like you grade a bunch of the Nagabas, you put together the 10s in a set, and you obviously have leftovers. For the longest time, I had been setting aside, like just putting them in a box and saving them for when I would have more potential full sets come back, but realized that like that was just backwards in terms of just like destroying my inventory utilization, like meaning that like it's just sitting in a box and it's not selling, whereas like I could have sold it, but at the same time like they did go up in price. So during Christmas, I started listing just the loose ones individually, and those like flew, like zeros across the board in terms of stock. After that, PSA 10 full set of the 050 to 052 starters, non-sequential. I did 3 sets of those at 524, so those are priced a little bit lower than the others because they're not sequential. Sold 8 copies of the Nagaba Sylveon PSA 10 for $500, so another one at like 60 per copy. After that, next we have 12 copies of the Mew Shiny Treasures EX, not the Bubble Mew, the regular full art version. 12 copies for $434. So these float between, at the time, they floated between like $38 to maybe $42 per copy. And in my opinion, this card is better than Bubble Mew. Like, not sorry. It's better than the Bubble Mew. After that, we have 13 copies of the Pikachu 120 promo, the gym promo, where it's Pikachu's fighting the Charizard. It's the other perspective. 13 copies for $423. So this is a card that I just buy like by the brick indiscriminately. It's like a 50-cent card at the time. Like as high as like $1 at the time too. Like it doesn't really matter. You just buy like 200 copies of it and just like grade at a time and sell them at like these ones went at like 35. I think right now my remaining stock is still going at 35. Next, PSA 10 Jolteon 7 copies at 413. So that is also 60, 55. So these next few will be pretty fast. They are all Scream cards. PSA 9 Psyduck at 400. So another PSA 9 Psyduck at 400. Another PSA 9 Psyduck at 400. Scream. PSA 9 Eevee also at 400. And then a PSA 9 Eevee Scream at 360. So that might have been an offer, sale, don't remember. Next, we have 3 sets of the PSA 9 Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, 050052 at 356. So that's about 120%. We have 2 copies of the Shining Mew, Kodo at the original Shining Mew at 315 each. So 2 copies of them, total 630, 315 each. 5 copies of the Nagaba Glaceon at 300, 60 apiece. A PSA 7 Shining Mew Kodo magazine promo at 275. And then we have 2 copies of the PSA 8 Oyama Pikachu. Both copies at 270 each. Next, we have 2 copies of the Reds Pikachu 270 promo, one of my favorite cards, at 260, so 130 each. This is a card that throughout 2024, one of my best sellers, consistently selling at like 120. I was buying them at like 40. One of my personal like buying regrets this like in 2024, like their Card Rush had like 70 copies at like 8,000 yen, and for the longest time I was like waiting for it to drop because at the time too the N was a little bit stronger, so I think 8,000 at the time was $60, and then after grading like I was in at like 75, and earlier in the year in 2024 the card was only selling at like 100, so it like didn't really make sense for like how much I was spending. But then the moment like I didn't check for a couple of days and I went back and they had lowered the price, and then every single copy sold. I was very, very sad. But we're here. I'm alive. It's okay. After that, PSA 10 McDonald's promo Pikachu 064 XY promo. This was a surprise. Longest time sitting on my store for the longest time for 250. Where am I? PSA 9 Nagaba Umbreon, 4 copies at 234. So that is like 70, 75 each. That card kind of recovered. I think that was just part of just either holiday season plus the price of the Nagaba is starting to really, really climb in like that mid to late December to where it is now is insane. I sold, let's see, next PSA 9 Mew Card S for 225. After that, 5 copies of PSA 9 Pikachu Nagaba for 211, so that's around 40, 42, 43 each. 6 copies of the Charizard 143 Grand Prix illustration, the other perspective of it facing the Pikachu. 6 copies for $200, around 35 each. So we're coming up on 50 entries here, so I'm probably just gonna stop there because now we're getting into kind of like the below, for total sales at least, below 200, and then I'm not gonna. There are 279 rows, so I'm not gonna go through all of those, nor should you listen to all of those. Sold 2 copies of Kanazawa Pikachu for 100 each. Sold 3 copies of the Just the Squirtle 052 PSA 10 for 190. So that would be 60, a little over 60 each. And then 3 copies of Nagaba Vaporeon for 180. So that's 60 each. So those are the top 50 for me. Overall total for the month on eBay was 40, almost 40. It was 48,600, so pushing 49,000 for December. And quite frankly, I need to be better prepared for next year because I ran out of stock. Like going through the top 50, like mentioning multiple quantities of items selling, like you go and like I look back on, like I've been like sitting on this for like the last like 2 months where like I knew going into the holiday season, like just like the retail seasonality behavior, like stuff will sell November, December, easy, no questions asked, and that shows in the data. Much of these items were not negotiated on. Like it is literally you get a notification through your email, something sold, or you log on to eBay, you see the little dot that says like you have a notification and it just says something's been purchased and it's like, oh my God, what purchase? You just click on it and it's like, okay, like this buyer bought X item, they didn't even negotiate on it. It was probably for a Christmas gift. And just that behavior of the buyer leading up to Christmas is like so powerful, especially with how like in I wouldn't say in demand, but obviously like the boom period we are in Pokemon, like just combined with Christmas, just like the Christmas psychology is so like powerful for anyone's eBay store, or just like online store, because as you approach Christmas, like each day each day approaching Christmas is like one less day that the post office has to like ship stuff out. So like I am guilty of it too, like buying last minute gifts and just like fingers crossed that it arrives. Or you have this list of people, you're busy procrastinating and you just like get to it where it's like, ah shit, like my friend likes this, and then it's like, oh, they're what's your favorite Pokemon? And then you're like, all right, fuck it, we'll just like buy this like PSA 10 Gengar card. It's $40. Like, whatever. Like, receive it, pack it up nicely, and it's a nice presentation too. I don't have a PSA 10 on me now, anything, but you get the idea. So, just that whole kind of like behavior life cycle of Christmas and retail combined with just the like iconic status of Pokemon and like where we are as like as a space in collecting now. It's just like combined for that Christmas demand. And I knew that going into the holiday season, and I still did not have enough stuff. This was something that I like crossed my mind, I think, going into Q3 of this year, knowing that for this year's Christmas, there are no giant home run sales like 2023, story for another time, but like in order to really, really sustain yourself long term, and I think long term in this space is a year to two, because I think about all the time. I think about like where is my business going to be in like past 2025, and I don't know the answer to that at the moment. But going into the holiday season, that's like where so like you really get so much runway for next year, going into next year, and like taking PSA turnaround time into account, and just like sourcing and buying and what you're grading, like the fact that like I go into January without like a lot of my best sellers, it it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing obviously because like on my eBay store, I have like a best sellers section, and every single item, like every item that's displayed on there is sold out. So that's on me. That's my fault. But it's also a good thing because it forces me to figure out what to do in the meantime while PSA is like low key backlogged again. So now the key learning from this type of month. There's obviously an outlier in this month too. The Gengar was 14 out of like 49. It's like 25% of the sales for the month, but even taking that away, like would have been 34, which is a huge recovery for my store at least, compared to the rest of the year in eBay sales. Rest of the year, as in like Q2 to like early, like end of Q2 to Q3 was pretty rough for my eBay store. But that was also countered by how strong my in person sales were. Ideally, I have a consistent kind of like month to month of eBay, and 2023 was pretty consistent month to month, whereas 2024 was much different. 2023, I worked one show. 2024, I worked like 16, I want to say. So, yeah, want to get back to just kind of like the learnings here around Christmas and the holiday season. I alluded to it a little bit around just like last minute Christmas gifts, but also want to like just mention that a lot of these, like the bulk of these sales, aside from that Gengar, are just really, really well executed cards that are accessible. And they're all graded cards too. Another That's like another topic for maybe later, but like Christmas gifts have to be like, especially if someone's buying for multiple people, like they have to be in a reasonable price range. They have to be recognizable. They have to be universally like enjoyed. The types of items that I think sell just really well year round, but I think for Christmas it just like goes through the roof. Like my whole like stock of the Gengars, 37 of them sold in December alone. I think that was from like one PSA submission, and I expected like, I guess I naively thought that like that would be enough for like 2 months of sales, 2 to 3 months of sales at like one every few days. But then like 37 in December, that's over one per day. But going back to just, and I mentioned this with the Gengar, but I think this applies to other cards too. Just well executed, with regards to the art. Some thematic kind of theme that puts the cards together in terms of like making sets. Next would be accessible price point, just that like 35 to $100 price point is really, really good, especially for like this type of holiday month where people are just buying without asking any questions. Let's see. What else do I want to talk about? But yeah, that was December. Is there anything else I want to talk about? Yeah, I guess being here at least allows me to avoid a lot of the noise that's going on in just like stateside right now with the boom, with like people stepping over each other at Costco, um, prismatic prices going insane. Maybe a few things about my stores that I don't really do sealed. It's mostly graded stuff. I sell a lot of raw cards too. I care a lot about like the accessibility of a card to the collector. And maybe one thing, yeah, I think that's another thing. A few things that kind of like the next portion that I wanted to discuss, which was learnings from this year, or at least 2024, when I mean this year, and where like the direction that I want my store to continue moving in. And I think a lot of context is required. Um, I've been selling for about 5 years, going into my fifth year now. And 3 of those years have been dedicating full time hours to the store. I left my job about a year and a half ago. So, the last year and a half, this has been my sole income. And one of the biggest, and I think this is not exclusive to me or the space, is something any business owner faces, is especially when you're like trying to sell something, like a physical good, is like sell through. You sell something, you have to replace it. You sell something, you have to replace it. And that's something that, like, to kind of go back to this Christmas thing, is where I'm at. And that's a big reason of why I sold the Masaki, was that I know that I could put that money, I could like deploy that capital into many, many other things in the space in terms of my inventory and continue to run the ship. I have one collection goal right now. It is the only collection goal that I have and I can have. Everything else has to be like for sale. And that's why the Masaki sold. The collection goal is a PSA 10 set of the 97 card S, the 153 card set, my favorite set of all time. I'm at 115 right now. So that's why. Everything else has to be for sale. So, in terms of just being a business owner, back to that, the biggest kind of like for me is like the biggest anxiety for me is like figuring out how, like, where the income's going to come from. You can have a great month where, or a great show where you knock it out of the ballpark. You do whatever. If it's a personal record of like 10, 15, 20, 25, 30K, whatever, in a weekend, which is insane. Like, Can you do it again? What's it like? How much did it cost you? Because like it's one thing to like do it at one show, which is obviously very impressive, but the stuff that you moved is just gone now, and you have to figure out how like what you're gonna sell either at the next show or on eBay, and you can easily sell 30K at every show. That's just a random number, but like I could do that. All I had to do is just buy $100,000 worth of stuff and then sell 30K, and then sell it for 30K. That like that's obviously like a losing battle, but like from 20, I think from 20, like one of the biggest like psychology changes for me from 2023 through 24 was shifting my like mental energy from like a increasing gross number, like overall sales number, to focusing on my margins, my like yeah, like my profit margins as opposed to just big shiny number. Um, and that was something that kind of hit as one of the themes of early 2024. There is opportunity to basically buy PSA 10 graded cards in Japan and essentially sell them through your own store domestically in the States. And like it kind of made sense where it's like you're already buying something that's made, you don't have to grade it, but your margins are much smaller. But if you overexpend yourself on like buying all these graded cards, you have to move them. So I think that's something I learned, especially when like dealing with more higher end stuff, where if you spend, I don't know, let's say like 2,000 on like a graded PSA 10, like sure you're below market on it maybe the market on it is 23 or 24. You buy for 2,000 and you sell it for, you're able to like quick flip it for like 2,200. I mean, the 200 is nice, but like you spent you spent a lot of money just to make a little bit of money. So I think the mindset change for me was really like creating a more balanced business around universal like accessibility to the collector via like objectively good cards. That doesn't make a ton of sense up front, but like I think it's things that appeal to the casual collector who like obviously loves Pokemon, but they may be either new to collecting or they are still at that kind of top of the massive sea iceberg where all they know is modern, but they don't have to go too far to see really, really cool things in the space that are a little bit different than what they know. Whether it's a different card from a different release, a Japanese exclusive promo of one of their favorite Pokemon, or an artwork, like a vintage artwork, card ass of their favorite Pokemon in artwork that is depicted that they've never seen before. That type of thing. Um, that would be better thought out. I have it in writing somewhere that's better explained, but if you've been to like my kind of like in-person shows and my displays, um, you kind of get where I'm coming at. So that, oh man, I don't like how I explained that, but I definitely want to explore that, probably in writing. Um, but through 2024, that was what I learned throughout the year of like just seeing in real time the diminishing returns on spending a lot to make a little versus being really, really smart about how like I deploy my capital to source. And leading into the whole Christmas thing, like establishing positions on certain cards that you know are going to sell was extremely critical for me. And that's why, back to the Masaki, the money from that went straight into sourcing just cards that, like, I know are good, that people universally like, but they have better accessibility, I think, in terms of maybe not longer term value, but they'll always hold at a certain amount and there will always be a buyer for it. And that's kind of where I'm at going into and just like doubling down on for 2025. Doubling down on my inventory strategy, doubling down on shows. I have last year I did 15 or 16 shows. I mentioned it maybe 20 minutes ago, but like, yeah, 15 or 16 last year. And then 2025, I already did Las Vegas, where there will be a recap of that. I did half of a recap. I did a day one recap. I didn't do a day two. I guess I did two shows this year. I did Las Vegas that same weekend, and then I also proxied my local show. So I sent my friend slash assistant to that show and gave him part of my inventory to sell there, and that went really, really well. So going to be doing more of that throughout this year. But yes, this year, what did I say, 30 shows? It'll be pushing 30 if scheduling doesn't change. But doubling down on shows, just continue to ensure that inventory is utilized for eBay. And yeah, continue doing my thing here. So I'll be here for a couple more weeks, home for a couple months, shows almost every weekend, and then back here. From the start, I mentioned my first and last video here. I'll be moving to a new place tomorrow. Pretty excited. I get my own shower. So the place I'm at now, it's in a share house, which is essentially an adult dormitory. So I have my own toilet, but the room is about the size of, I'm not going to show my room because it's an absolute train wreck, but the room is about the size, it's smaller than a conference room, but it has a bed, has a desk, and some room for my stuff, and the sink is a good 7 feet from me. The shower is shared, which is god awful if a lot of people are using, like, have to use a shower. You have to basically wait until someone leaves. And then when I first moved in the summer of 2024, it was the miserable Japan heat, and the hallways aren't air conditioned. So, yeah, it's basically a sauna. Like, after you take a shower, like, you're already sweating when, like, you're putting your clothes back on. And that does not feel good. It feels like I didn't take a shower at all. So excited to be moving into my own place with a shower, more space. It has like a cool little loft area where the bed is, so it's like a separate, kind of like two separate living spaces. So very much looking forward to that. And then yeah, I'm historically up to this point too. Whenever I was in Japan too, I was taking lessons as well, just like spending a lot of time here. I think the right thing to do is to like assimilate, and that also includes learning the language. Like, I go to all the car shops in all the cities, all the cities within cities of Tokyo, and Akiba, very popular, has all the tourists, and you hear a lot of English. So hopefully, I want to like make it easier on people and easier for myself too. It's like a better way to experience life here. Starting to pick up the language, so my speaking skills are very broken still, but I take lessons through my friend now, so very happy about that. They're a lot of fun. And what else? That might be it for now. Already going at it for almost an hour. Might as well go through what I bought so far in the last 2 weeks. So, let's see. Okay. Where should I put my mic? We are going to pinch the mic between two of the deck boxes. And let's start with... Ooh, this is going to be hard to put my arms around to go through the cards. Okay, I think this will work. Oh, do look at that, more Nagabuzz. So I'll do some discussion on some of these cards. Not all the cards are for grading, obviously. Maybe that's another thing too. A lot of the sales that I didn't mention through the kind of like readout were all the lower price stuff, and all the lower price stuff is raw cards. That stuff adds up. Okay, so Detective Pikachu. No, this is a Comedian Pikachu, Manzai Pikachu. So you see it. Oh, you see it there. You see the crease, but in $10, can't go wrong. E-Series, some VS. Like, a lot of the stuff goes for like $10 raw, $8 to $10 raw, and a lot of these are really quite clean too. So, like, shut up, Siri. Like, LP Plus, Game Boy Meowth, always buy these. These always, for some reason, these always sell on the store, on eBay. And another thing that I can't stress enough, especially for like growing stores or, I don't know, scaling, is like how you utilize your inventory, how you source your inventory. At shows, it's like, I describe it as like this like adrenaline rush of sales and money being thrown around everywhere, but you only have so much space. So like, you obviously want to like kind of like maximize your sellable space, and a lot of the stuff I'm showing, very, very slept on card. It's a full art of the original Pikachu. This is expensive, but we dollar cost average. But yeah, a lot of the stuff, like, this is not for shows. Maybe for a binder, but I'm like too lazy to put together a binder. I think these are cool together like that. Like the Squirtle, like this, I always have on eBay, and it always sells for like $10. It's like, just like vending, just, I don't know, good cards. Say good card, and I show like a shiny treasure. I don't even have the cards in the frame. Also, another card that, cards, plural, that are extremely, extremely popular in my display. Such a good card. The holo on these cards is absolutely insane. Like, there's already like swirl there. It's not like uncommon to see a double swirl for those cards. That's one box. I don't even know. Like, will I be able to like get through all? Yeah. Whatever. Let's do this one next. Okay. More VS, if you saw through the case. Skull Pikachu. This is very popular. People love Cubone. I think this one was... I think I wanted to grade this one. OG, Blastoise, always have to have that. More raws of these. Like, when I go back to say, like, objectively good cards, like, these are objectively good cards. Japanese exclusive. Popular Pokemon. Connecting artwork. What else? Old. This card could buy beer. I think 2002. Yeah. What else can I say? I mean, thematic connection. Hollows are beautiful. Wouldn't have like condition rarity. Like, there are like a fair amount of PSA 10s out there. PSA 10 for both are like 800 ish, 750. But still, an $800, and this is something I tell people at shows all the time when it comes to. We're just gonna skip. I don't know if I have the card in here. Like the grade A example. For those who know me, know which card I'm going to bring out. Where are you? Card is something. There are cards here. Like, I already bought like 4 of them. Yeah. That card. 10 out of 10 card. Like, here's why. The first Shining card. Shiny Mew. Popular Pokemon. Old back. Old back is the best. What else? Japanese exclusive promo. It has condition rarity. An aspect of it. There are a fair amount of PSA 10s out there, but like, go out there and buy a raw copy of this card and grade it in a 10. Like, it can happen. It's not impossible. Nothing's impossible, but like, it's not gonna be easy. This one's pretty rough. I normally wouldn't have like bought this copy at this price, but like, it has a swirl like right by the head, and the card in the front presents pretty well. But for me, at least, this is like the poster child of like one of the objectively good cards. Like it'd be tough to argue. A PSA 10, like, how many cards out there come in a PSA 10 and sell for $3,000, but you can buy the same exact card for $100? Like, I'll wait. And like, there's like, it's not a rare card. There's a lot of them out there. Like, I'll fill a display case full of them. But like, every price point, 100, 150, 200, 250. Then like PSA 8, like pushing 315, 350. PSA 9, 600 plus now. Like, that's still a lot of money for a card. Like, but for the like collector who wants the card, appreciates the card, the artwork, they like Mew. They want the first Mew card. They're doing a Mew set for their binder. Like, it's the same card at the end of the day. So yeah, we got 2 of those. Base set Charizard. Always have to have that. These are really clean. So 2 of those. This was really clean. Hollowback. What else can I say? Typhlosion. Didn't have a good year last year, Typhlosion, but it's okay. Yeah. Oh, these are cool too, yeah. And these, like, $3, these are all pretty clean. So, like, a big part of, like, kind of like this intake kind of process when I get home is going through and condition checking almost everything. Usually when I see a card, I'll have a pretty good idea of, like, where it'll go in the store. Like, 80, I want to say 90% of the stuff will go on, be sold raw. But a lot of the stuff that, like, I pick out, like, especially, like, storage bin stuff, buying it for, like, $3, $2, $3. But it sells, it sells for that 7 to 19 range. All right, they're just, all right.